today, so you're going to come prepared for the discussion. Presentation.
Tell me what you guys are products, which would get us closer to our estimation. Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Marie Jones. I teach 5th grade.
And I'm Danielle Green. I teach AIG at Olive Chapel Elementary.
Back in January of last year, we had a collaborative teaching workshop here at Olive Chapel where the AIG department came out and introduced to us what collaborative teaching would look like in an elementary school classroom. Ms. Green was also present because that's who our 5th grade teachers would be working with. And we essentially needed a guinea pig class that we were going to use to have her push in and take over a tremendous amount of the teaching load so that it wouldn't just be myself teaching the class anymore. It would now be her and I working together to teach this group of children math. So we started with math and decided that that would probably be the easiest, a little easier than language arts for us to start. And we had to begin with the planning stages. So
I think it was because it was more concrete and we knew that we could take the time we had in our math instruction and really focus in on how are we going to meet all the students' needs in the classroom when having both of us there.
And utilizing both of us, because up until now I'm used to running the entire math block by myself. You know, if I did centers, it was still all on me to do it. And usually the AG children were pulled out. They were never left in the room, and Miss Green usually took them into her room. So now she was going to be coming into the room to not only serve them, but to serve what I felt was everybody in that room. So that was a big jump for us.
I mean, currently the situation that we're in now, we only have about 7 students that are identified in AIG math, but you know, I had the opportunity to work with 27 today, and that's something that happens regularly for us. And I think it's the planning and the focus that we put in on reaching all of those students and giving them all of the benefit of seeing what they can do with their instruction.
For my teaching, the most obvious benefit has come out of our planning sessions where we plan the units together, because as a classroom teacher, I always focus on mastery of the standards. I need every student to show proficiency, and then I can worry about the enrichment and the remediation after that. When I plan with Ms. Green, she comes in with the automatic mindset of enrichment. So she focuses more on what type of questions she can ask to have the students thinking critically right off the bat.
So I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of a challenge today. Think about what we've already thought about with decimals, what we've understood, what we've worked on, all the strategies, and then pull up chairs, guys. Are you over here? Okay. Yep, go ahead. All right, so we're going to think about how can we now add and subtract with decimals.
And she looks at the lesson with a different eye than I do, because I have to look at the lesson as, what if they don't get it? How am I going to teach this? She looks at it from go, when they get this, how am I going to extend their thinking? And that's something that I don't have, you know, intrinsically as a classroom teacher, because I need to teach them all. And so that has been a huge benefit for my teaching, because now I find myself doing it. And what we've kind of come to is we teach them all as if they got it from the start, and we push them. And there are some that don't, and that's what I'm in there for. But the obvious benefit is Ms. Green's in there to just go ahead and move the others while I can get the others there.
And I think that part of it too is when we go in planning, we have the idea in mind. You know, I pay attention to where she is with pacing, and then my goal is how am I going to extend those children in their thinking, in their application of that mastery of the standard, and then even sometimes accelerate them in that standard. And so we're looking at multiple different ways to reach all of these students. And it's true, we do kind of set the stage for, we're going to teach here always, and we're going to help you rise to that level of, you know, achievement. I think that one of the ways that we really get started with this is we take the time to create a pre-assessment for each unit and make sure that all the students have the opportunity to complete the assessment. Then that's when we really get together and disaggregate the data from the assessment and look and see what strengths do our students have, what are some areas that we might need to support them, and that's where, you know, Ms. Jones will come in and add scaffolding to the lessons. And then we look at, you know, how is that going to guide our instruction throughout the entire unit. We've had some really great successes just throughout this process. I mean, we had a student that has really shown immense amount of growth from the ability to be challenged daily.
It's farther than except this is greater than 5. 6 is greater than 5. No? So, look, it goes right out.
I think they want to be challenged, and unfortunately what happens when you don't have opportunities like these, they're not. They're sitting in a classroom and the material's delivered to them the way that the teachers are supposed to deliver it, and that enrichment, that critical thinking piece is missing. And what we found is when we challenge all students with just an opportunity to think critically, to analyze why they got the answer that they got, they rise to the challenge and they love it, and it gives them this confidence. And we saw students who were level 3s on EOGs in 4th grade. In 5th grade, they became level 4s and 5s because they were finally exposed to the opportunity to understand math, and not just for the standard algorithm part of it, but the why, the drawing it, with her questioning, and then with myself being able to support with, the basic concepts that they needed. I think all of that has reached some kids that we've never been able to hit before.
You have to tell your partner why. Why are you putting it there?
So when we give students opportunities and activities throughout our lessons, we think about the Decimal of the Day project that was provided in CMAP. I had to think about how would I have them stretch that thinking. And so I stop and I tell them, well guys, we know how to write decimals this way, and this way, but what else do we know that we can do? Can we use, scientific notation? Can we create a word problem where the decimal is the answer? Can we think about how else can I form this decimal using a visual, and really stretching all the strategies that they know? And that gives them the opportunity to rise to the occasion and really stretch their thinking, their critical thinking skills, and then allowing them to work together in collaborative pairs. That gives them the opportunity to hear what some others might be thinking and grow their ideas off of that.
Much greater than 1 5/10. How are you and your partner qualifying that? Because I think you need to decide that before you start. Because when I see much greater, I'm thinking a pretty significant amount.
When I was walking around the room, I noticed there was a lot of discussion about the word much. It was how much greater are these numbers than 1 5/10. And there's different schools of thought. Some of them right away sent like a benchmark, like 50. And so we just kind of stopped and brought the whole class back, where we could have a discussion that much is one of those words that you may need to set a guideline for your group or have reasoning for why you determined what you did. I know in the group I was in, we said 2 would be considered much larger than 1 5/10. And they had a reason for why they thought that, but it was having them discuss why they set the benchmarks that they did.
Everybody got one? All right, you guys are good partnering together? Yep. Okay, all right. So here's the deal. Let's look at these decimal benchmarks. What do you notice that's different from the original benchmarks that you looked at earlier today?
So within this classroom, we have 27 students, but they're really all at different levels. I have students that are in there that are currently enrolled in the 6+ SSA program, and they're working on online modules. I, as their SSA contact, are tending to their needs, checking in with them, making sure they're staying on track, as well as 4th graders coming up to the 5th grade math instruction for acceleration. And throughout that process, we have to be intentional about the way that we're focusing on all of those students' needs within the one math block.
When we plan, we always plan for what about those students that haven't quite shown mastery, so that there's something that I can do with them, usually in a group to the side, to get them with the rest of the group. But this particular lesson, these 4 students showed a little bit of trouble in the homework the night before that I had gotten the chance to look at. And so while she was doing the same activity with the entire group, who showed that they understood the concept and could move on, I took those 4 students over to the side and we did the exact same activity with me there to scaffold for them. And they were quite successful. We didn't want to do an alternate activity. It's not necessarily that they needed that. They were still able to do what the group was doing. They just needed more prompting and just a little bit more help.
And then there it gives me the time and the opportunity to work with students, and I had them working in pairs so that then I can facilitate through the room, checking in with them, asking them those critical questions to show that they're really understanding where are we placing these decimals in their benchmarks and why are we doing that. And I had some really good conversations then to bring the whole group back together, and that's when, you know, even the small group comes back together and I'm allowing the students to then share their answers. And it gives all the students in the class the opportunity to see what were some of the other groups thinking and was I on the same track. So I think when we first started talking about the idea of collaborative teaching, I saw it as a little bit of a challenge, just the idea of me as the AIG teacher coming into that teacher space. Those are her kids, you know, they're together all day, every day. And, you know, what was the trust factor going to be like for the two of us? And, you know, where would we be able to take the instruction as we built this relationship together as teaching partners?
It was difficult as a classroom teacher because if I have 28 kids in there and only 7 are identified AIG, I need her to care about the other 21 as much as she does about those 7. And if she doesn't, then that was going to be very difficult because they're my responsibility, all 28, regardless of their ability level, or I have to get them all to mastery. So that was a big step, letting this other person in my space with my children to essentially kind of take over in certain aspects. I was going to have to rely on her a lot in areas that I was a little weaker in, that I needed her to step up. So the first couple weeks were probably a little more difficult. We didn't know when to speak. You didn't want to interrupt each other, and we still kept it very separate. She was on one side of the room and I was on the other, and we taught essentially 2 different lessons to 2 different groups of people. And what it became was when we would plan, we would sit together and here's what I'm going to teach. And she would say, well, great, I can come in right here and I can add this, or I can ask this question. And it just evolved into, I can show her a lesson now and say, here's what I'd like to do. And she tells me what she'd like to do, and it just goes together perfectly. It's seamless. When I'm speaking, she can step right in, and it's not even like an interruption, and the kids just kind of go with it.
Yeah, I think that the students are now at the point where they see both of us in the room as equals. You know, they'll come to me with questions, they'll go to Ms. Jones with questions, and that took time, but when it happened, when it clicked for us, it started to click with the students as well. And we really see now that when they're working together in their groups and their pairs, that they have that trust with each other to value each other's opinions, even when they do, you know, have a debate over which problem may be right or wrong. You know, it's respectful, and they're really thinking about how they're communicating with each other and through all of their math instruction.